They come out of the room of the house. Jonah, Mary, and Mark are there outside, and they kneel down, worshipping Jesus. Just to stop for a moment there. Jonah and Mary, if I remember rightly, are the parents of Mark, and they live in Gethsemane. They manage the property. Gethsemane is wholly owned by Lazarus. That's something worth knowing. But what I'm really pausing for here is to tell you this Mark, it seems pretty clear to me, I've not read it for absolute certainty, this is our Mark, the Mark who wrote a gospel, the one who was the companion of St. Peter, and who wrote his gospel from Peter's recollections, but also it seems, I think, from Mark's recollections, because there's a scene in St. Mark's gospel when they're in Gethsemane, and the men come from the temple to arrest Jesus. The apostles run away, and it's mentioned a young man wearing only a tunic, which I think comes off. He runs, he gets away as well. And I've read at least one commentary, people wonder, who is this? He's not mentioned by the other evangelists. Is it Mark himself? Is this a bit of an autobiographical information? Well, I think it is, because indeed Mark is in Gethsemane, and he does run. So this is the St. Mark of the Gospel, about whom we'd otherwise know next to nothing. We don't get vast amounts of information about Mark, even in the work of Maria Valtorta. But it's good to put a face to a Gospel, if I might put it like that. So continuing. As it said, Jonah, Mary and Mark are there outside, and they kneel down, worshipping Jesus. May peace remain with you, and may the Lord reward you for what you've given me, says Jesus, blessing them while passing by. Mark stands up saying, Lord, the olive groves along the Bethany road are full of disciples awaiting you. Go and tell them to go to the field of the Galileans. Mark darts away with all the speed of his young legs. So they've all come, say the apostles to one another. Further aside, sitting between Margam and Mary of Clopas, there is the mother of the Lord. And she stands up when she sees him coming, worshipping him with all the palpitations of her heart of mother and believer. Come, mother, and you too, Mary, says Jesus, inviting them, when he sees them stand still, immobilized by his majesty that blazes as in the morning of the resurrection. But Jesus does not want to overwhelm with his majesty, and he kindly asks Mary of Alphaeus, are you alone? The other women, the others are ahead, with the shepherds and with Lazarus and all his family. But they left us here because, oh Jesus, 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 how shall I put up with not seeing you anymore? Blessed Jesus, my God, I who loved you even before you were born, I who wept so much over you when I did not know where you were after the slaughter. I who had my son in your smile after you came back, and all my blessings. Just a pause again. When Mary of Clopas, who's speaking now, says, I who wept so much over you when I did not know where you were after the slaughter. That was Mary of Clopas back in Nazareth, knowing that the Blessed Virgin and St. Joseph, who were from Nazareth, had gone for the census to Bethlehem. Then word gets back to Nazareth that King Herod had ordered the slaughter of huge numbers of young children. And so since Mary of Clopas knew the Blessed Virgin and St. Joseph were there in Bethlehem, then of course she would think that they'd all been killed. At least Jesus had been killed. So that's what she's referring to. So continuing, I who had my son in your smile after you came back, and all my blessings. How many blessings, how many you've given me. Now I'm really becoming poor, a widow, all alone. While you were here, there was everything. I thought I'd experienced all sorrow that evening, but the very grief, all the sorrow of that day has dulled my mind. And yes, it was not so deep as it is now. And then there was the fact that you were going to rise. I seemed as if I could not believe it. But now I realise that I did believe it, because I did not feel what I'm feeling now, she says, weeping and panting, so much do her tears choke her. My good Mary, you are worrying just like a little boy who thinks that his mother does not love him and has abandoned him, because she's gone to town to buy him presents that will make him happy, and it will soon go back to him to cover him with kisses and gifts. And am I not doing so with you? By the way, just to interrupt there, there was a time when I was very small and my mum had gone to the shops. And for some reason, I got it into my head that she'd gone, just gone. And I was crying like anything. Out in the street, I can see the road now. I must have been playing with my friends, but I'm on my own. Or maybe she'd taken me to part way down the streets and she'd gone off shopping. And I was crying, completely lost. And I was watching down the road, waiting for her, hoping she'd come back, but not sure she ever would. And eventually she did come back. And then I was okay. But why I got in that state, I don't know. So here we have Jesus talking about just that very thing. I think in my mother's case, she might have been going to get some basics, not particularly going to buy me some presents. But it was that effect. I don't know whether out there listening here, there are other adult men who remember back when they were little boys and they had this happen to them. But it's pretty amazing. And so he talks about the little boy whose mother is coming back to cover him with kisses and gifts. And am I not doing so with you? Am I not going to prepare joy for you? Am I not going to come back and say to you, come, my dear relative and beloved disciple, mother of my beloved disciples? Am I not going to leave you, my love? Shall I give you my love, Mary? You know whether I love you. Do not weep so, but rejoice, because you will no longer see me despised and fatigued, no longer chaste and rich only in the love of a few people. And with my love I leave you my mother. John will be like a son to her, and I ask you to be a good sister to her, as you've always been. See? My mother is not weeping. She is aware that if her nostalgia for me is the file that will consume her heart, the weight will be always short as compared to the great joy of an eternal union. And she also knows that this parting of ours will not be so absolute as to make her say, I no longer have my son. That was her cry of sorrow on that day of sorrow. Now hope sings in her heart, I know that my son is ascending to his Father, but he will not leave me without his spiritual love. That is what you believe. And everybody